Hey guys, how are we doing? So, a lot of you have been requesting this for a while since I've been reacting to Swag Kage's Naruto discussion videos and all the other Naruto stuff that I do on here. And so I thought, you know what, let's film it. Didn't realise it's a long one though, so I'm trying to put 3 videos out a day. The day that this is out, there's probably just going to be 2 because this is going to take so long to cut together and upload, etc. So I apologise for that, but most days there will be 3 videos a day now. Yes, I'm working that hard. Anyway, let's get into this. So, this is In Defense of Talk No Jutsu, which I love, because that was Naruto's probably most powerful jutsu. Being able to talk someone from fighting and turning good. But I like that. It's always a nice thing about Naruto. Such a kind-hearted individual who just seen the good in everyone, I suppose, that he met. And yeah. Anyway, let's get into this. In Defense of Talk No Jutsu, who's been Hypocrisy in Naruto.
There's one aspect of Naruto that was explored brilliantly over the course of the entire series.
Right.
One motif that remained consistent throughout. For
Very
some,
consistent.
it's the worst part of Naruto.
Nah,
For others,
it's awesome.
it's a big meme.
It is
For
a
me,
bit of a meme,
it's a stroke of pure genius. I am, of course, referring to Talk No Jutsu, Naruto's supernatural ability to defeat any opponent and completely change their ideology just by talking to them. Now, contrary to what some people may believe, Naruto didn't always have this ability, but even when he did use it, his words weren't just words. Each successful instance of Talk No Jutsu was supported both by Naruto's actions and the past experiences of his opponents.
Oh, of course, it didn't just come out of nowhere.
Each one of his foes had an apparent contradiction in their ideals that Naruto forced them to recognize, and it was the contradictions that led them to change their perspective. Not lazy, overly optimistic writing, not the power of friendship, but the antagonist's own hypocrisy. And on the topic of hypocrisy, let's go back to the origin of Talk No Jutsu. Let's go back to the land of waves.
Oh! Haku and Zabuza!
Prior to his initial conversation with Haku, Naruto's desires were overly simplistic.
Yep.
He had a goal, but not a purpose. In other words, he knew what he wanted to do, but he didn't know why he wanted to do it.
Did
Naruto want to get stronger for himself or for someone else? He had never thought about it until he met Haku, and so it was through Haku that Naruto developed his worldview. Haku's strength came from his desire to protect what was most precious to him, and that resonated with Naruto. He recalled his past experiences with Inari, Kakashi, Iruka, and realized that he wanted to protect people just as they protected him. Haku's impact on Naruto ran deeper than that, though. When Haku believed that he no longer had a purpose and asked to be killed, Naruto was clearly upset about it, but he nevertheless prepared to oblige him, under the depressing pretense of, that's just how the world works. There's no other way. Sasuke's supposedly dead body served to confirm in Naruto's mind that not everyone could achieve their dreams in this cruel world. And though he and Haku could have been friends under different circumstances, that was now an impossibility. He saw 2 kids around his age who had both failed to attain their dreams and seemed ready to assume that there was nothing he could do. But then something happened that changed his mind forever. Haku stopped him, took Kakashi's lightning blade to save his master, and then Zabuza, the cold and sadistic assassin of the mist, shed tears for his subordinate. Though Zabuza viewed shinobi as tools, he couldn't treat Haku like one. When Haku sacrificed himself, Zabuza had a chance to kill Kakashi by slashing through his disciple, but he hesitated. Despite everything that Zabuza had said about Haku, he couldn't dispose of him like a broken tool. His hypocrisy was reinforced when this scene was called back to in the war arc. As a mindless puppet whose feelings and free will had been stripped away, Zabuza truly became a tool to Kabuto, and Haku truly became a tool to Zabuza. This mind-controlled Zabuza showed no hesitation in hacking through Haku, but in that state, he wasn't really a shinobi. He was a tool, but he was no longer human. While still alive, however, Zabuza couldn't escape the emotional baggage that came shackled to his humanity. Haku lived to protect Zabuza as his tool, yet he couldn't bring himself to kill Naruto or Sasuke, even when doing so would have helped to protect his master. Likewise, Zabuza was supposed to be nothing more than Gato's tool, but in his last act, he defied Gato and thanked Haku for standing by his side. By affirming their humanity, Haku and Zabuza proved that shinobi couldn't just be tools. Once the battle was over, however, Sakura wondered whether or not those two were right about what a shinobi should be, to which Kakashi replied,
"Shinobi ってのは自分の存在理由を求めちゃいけない。ただ道具として存在することは大切。それは木の葉でも同じだよ。"
He said that, but when asked if he actually agreed with that idea, Kakashi said no. That this was merely an ideal that all ninjas strive for, rather than what ninja actually were. In other words, not everyone agreed that a ninja should be an emotionless tool, but because that was the widely accepted notion of the perfect ninja, most people just went along with it. That's why, when Naruto rejected that ideal, and said that he would find his own ninja way, it didn't come off as mere fantasy.
No.
The current shinobi system was based on a falsehood, and while it would take a tremendous amount of effort to reform this society, actually inciting that change wasn't an impossibility. But before Naruto could convince anyone to change the fate of the world, he first had to convince one ninja that he could change his own fate.
人は決して変わることなどできない。
Wow, yes.
落ちこぼれは落ちこぼれだ。その性格も力も変わりはしない。
Stop being so mean.
変わりようがないからこそ差が生まれ、エリートや落ちこぼれなどといった表現
Stop being so mean.
Neji Hyuga subscribed to the notion that all individuals have a predetermined destiny, and that there is nothing anyone can do to change that. At first, he made his philosophy seem pretty convincing. Before his fight with Hinata had even begun, he read her body language like an open book and obliterated what little self-confidence she had. Without throwing a single punch, he would have given her a full-blown panic attack if Naruto hadn't interfered. But all of this strength and menace cleverly masked the obvious contradiction in Neji's ideals. While his all-seeing Byakugan allowed him to see the flaws of the world around him, those distractions blinded him to his own dishonesty. He told Hinata and later Naruto that people can't defy their destinies, and yet his most significant moments showed him actively attempting to defy his own. Neji's cadet branch of the Hyuga clan had been forced to serve the main branch for generations. This was a fate that Neji had been born into, so according to his logic, he would forever remain inferior to Hinata's main branch. Yet, when he was paired against Hinata, he viciously attacked her on a mental and physical level. He consistently referred to himself as an elite, in spite of the inferior bloodline he was born into. While most Talk No Jutsu recipients tried to suppress or abandon their conflicting desires or tendencies, Neji boldly displayed his hypocrisy without even realizing it.
Yeah.
That's why when he and Naruto
He's
faced
spouting
off,
all that,
their
but
battle was a simple
he ain't
one.
walking it,
Both
is he?
boys stubbornly clung to their ideals and butted heads over and over again, each believing the other to be full of crap. The difference was that Neji's actions and words were contradictory, while Naruto's remained consistent. As such, it's only fitting that Naruto, the problem child who couldn't even pull off a basic clone jutsu in the Ninja Academy, would fool the talented Neji with his trademark shadow clone jutsu, a Jonin-level technique he had mastered as an attempt to defy his fate. He won the match, and by winning in this manner, by using an ability that a so-called failure should never have perfected, he definitively proved that Neji's philosophy was wrong. This was hammered home when Neji found out that the inciting incident for his pessimistic worldview was actually a lie. That his father hadn't been forcibly killed, but instead chose to die of his own free will, and thus escape the shackles of his predetermined destiny. There was no room for debate. He was wrong.
Oh, mate. Naruto vs. Gaara. What a Talk No Jutsu moment this is. When you think about how Gaara, like, grows as a character throughout the series after this as well. Whoa. So
Gaara was
creepy.
the first of many twisted Naruto parallels that appeared in the series, but he also served as a combination of previous conflicts Naruto had overcome. Like Neji, Gaara had been shackled to a predetermined destiny of his own. He would forever be hated. And like Haku, he had been left without a purpose for living. Gaara was born with a monster trapped inside of him, and he had been cast aside by his village just like Naruto. As a child, he craved friendship and acceptance, but was denied these things at every turn, constantly met with the same contemptuous glare. Eventually, after he was betrayed by the only person whom he thought loved him, Gaara did what Neji refused to do and embraced his fate. He decided that families were mere hulls of flesh, connected by hatred and murderous intent, and that he could only survive off the suffering of others. Killing became his purpose. Isolation became his vindication. Or did it?
本当の孤独を知る目。そして それがこの世の最大の苦しみであることを知
You're the same as
ってい
me.
る言ったはずだ。お前は俺と同じ目をしていると。力を求め憎しみと殺意に満ち満ちてい
Yeah,
る。
you're not wrong.
己を孤独という地獄に追い込んだ。
Yep. Read him like a book.
殺したくてうずうずしている目だ。
One cannot truly feel hatred without first experiencing love, and therein lies Gaara's conflict. He claimed that he killed to feel alive, and in doing so, he held isolation above all. But in truth, Gaara hated being alone. The very source of his hatred, represented by the kanji that he carved into his skin as a child, was his wish to be loved. He tried to abandon this desire by loving himself, but he could never fully do so. To Gaara, a meaningful battle wasn't just a physical death match, it was a scenario in which one individual waged their purpose against another's, and by losing the battle, that person would lose their reason to exist. In both Sasuke and Naruto, Gaara was confronted by an opponent who shared personal ties with others. Since Sasuke's conviction was split between his desire to protect his comrades and his desire for vengeance, he was defeated. Against Naruto, however, it was Gaara's resolve that faltered. After Naruto had learned of Gaara's upbringing, he viewed Gaara as a manifestation of the monster he himself could have become, as well as a reminder of his own dark past that he wanted to leave behind. Because of this, Gaara impacted him in a way that no one else in the Chunin exams could. Where Neji had angered Naruto, Gaara terrified him. Where Naruto had been itching to fight Sasuke, Rock Lee, and others, he wanted to avoid Gaara altogether. That is, until the lives of his allies were at stake. Unlike Gaara, who believed that isolation gave him strength, Naruto's power came from his connections. And unlike Sasuke, Naruto's commitment to his comrades was absolute. He initially feared Gaara not just for his similar background, but also because he, unlike Naruto, had managed to fight for himself while remaining isolated. He was afraid of the possibility that embracing solitude would make one stronger than those who had escaped it. When forced to fight him, however, Naruto recalled Haku, another shinobi who once stood at the center of solitude, and was reminded that loneliness does not lead to power. Only by protecting others could one truly become strong. And because Naruto's ideals were unwavering, he won. Gaara, on the other hand, couldn't let go of his lingering longing for love, and as such, he lost.
Bless. Wow. You couldn't talk him out of this one though, could you? Could not talk him out of this one.
As I mentioned previously, Sasuke was weak because he lacked conviction. He stood at a crossroads with two paths laid out before him. There was his brother's path, the path of finding strength in his hatred, and then there was Naruto's path, the path of finding strength in bonds. Would he embrace his anger and take everything upon himself, or would he reject his anger and find solace in friendship? He was torn between two ideals, unable to fully commit to either, and eventually he would get his wake-up call in the form of Itachi, who had returned to the village not to confront Sasuke, but find instead Naruto. To retrieve Naruto.
That must have been so frustrating.
Sasuke challenged his brother,
like,
he was brushed aside and met with a response. Sasuke had spent years preparing for this chance meeting with Itachi, but his wishy-washy efforts had gotten him nowhere. Naruto, who had stayed true to his conviction, was getting stronger, while Sasuke, split between love and hate, was falling behind. After being ignored and humiliated by the man he sought to kill, Sasuke's indecision had reached a breaking point. Would he abandon his quest for vengeance, or would he abandon his comrades? Unlike Gaara, Sasuke had tried both, and based on his own experiences, he decided that he couldn't walk the same path as Naruto without remaining in his rival's shadow. And so, Sasuke chose revenge and left the village. When Naruto finally confronted Sasuke in the Valley of the End, he lacked the same level of understanding that led him to victory against Neji and Gaara. Rather than challenge Sasuke on his ideals, he instead attempted to guilt-trip him. Our peers risked their lives to bring you back. Orochimaru killed the third Hokage. Does Konoha mean nothing to you? To Sasuke, these were non sequiturs. He didn't care about what other people had done. He cared only about power and how to attain it.
Yeah,
so what if Orochimaru
brother.
killed the third Hokage? He could make Sasuke stronger. To win Sasuke over, Naruto needed to convince him that the path offered by Orochimaru, the path of hatred, was not the path to power. Yeah. And to do that, he needed to fight and defeat Sasuke. So they fought. But because Naruto couldn't understand Sasuke and tried to drag him back to Konoha by force, he lost. His talk no jutsu failed. Meanwhile, Sasuke had understood and even acknowledged Naruto's efforts, which allowed him to win on this day. In the future, Naruto would learn from his mistakes, and these two would clash again. But before that, the pain of his failure would grow even larger.
かつてわしのしてきたことは間違いばかりじゃった。しかし、最後になって正しいことがやっとできそうじゃ。
The next two story arcs highlighted Naruto's struggle to move past his loss. Hot off the heels of a 3-year time skip, Naruto had a new look, a better grasp of his abilities, and an enhanced feeling of inadequacy, knowing that the power of the nine-tailed fox was slowly eating away at his psyche and on the verge of triggering a severe mental breakdown at a moment's notice. Worse still, another one of his comrades was abducted, and just like last time, there was nothing he could do to prevent it. In typical Naruto fashion, he plunged headfirst into the Kazekage rescue mission, but because he couldn't keep his emotions in check, he accomplished next to nothing. The only character who actually benefited from his inclusion was Lady Chiyo. Her contradiction was that she burdened the next generation with her generation's problems, yet had no faith in them, and took no actions to help them bear that burden. In other words, she wouldn't take responsibility for them, but expected them to take responsibility for her. This dichotomy was strengthened by her reluctance to accept help from other villages, and she even went so far as to say that friendly alliances are fundamentally impossible. This was why Naruto impacted her so greatly. Despite belonging to a different village, he was able to connect to Gaara in a way that no other sand ninja could. At the same time, he denounced the flawed practices that had led Gaara to this
so many similarities growing up.
The flawed practices that Lady Chiyo had taken responsibility for. Since Naruto hadn't actually backed his words with meaningful action like in the past, however, Chiyo needed to face her contradiction through an outside party. She needed a battle of her own to strengthen her doubts. And that's exactly why she fought Sasori. Her grandson was a prime example of what Chiyo's toxic ideals had created. An emotionless puppet who felt nothing, even at the prospect of a close family member dying. To put it another way, you could say that Sasori viewed family as mere hulls of flesh, connected by hatred and murderous intent. Not only had Chiyo's generation led Gaara to be tormented by Shukaku and alienated from the entire village, but they had also birthed a member of the Akatsuki, the very same organization that had already killed one Kazekage and had now taken another in Gaara. She had made two huge mistakes, but who was it that arrived to clean up her mess? Why, none other than Konoha, the same village she had avoided in the past. She had been proven definitively wrong, and that's why the lady who had previously displayed no hope for the future of the village sacrificed her life to save the one who would lead that village to a brighter future.
Kakuzu.
確かにチームワークは大事だ。危ない橋ってことも分かってる。でも今、俺はその危ない橋を一人で渡りたいんだってばよ。向こうへたどり着けなきゃ。俺はいつまでた。
If I can't win a fight, I will never get better.
Akatsuki suppression was the only Naruto-focused arc that didn't include an instance of talk no jutsu. And as such, it's a good example of what the series could have been without this thematic through line. Unlike the other antagonists I've covered, Kakuzu didn't possess an ideological contradiction that Naruto was meant to challenge.
No.
Instead, he served to advance Naruto's relationship with Sasuke. After failing to retrieve Sasuke during the aptly named mission, Naruto entered a downward spiral. His only real achievement during the Kazekage rescue arc was his influence on Lady Chiyo. Otherwise, he wasn't there to protect Gaara. He fell under Itachi's genjutsu, which only strengthened the sting of his failures. He did basically nothing to take down Deidara or Sasori. He threw a tantrum that nearly initiated a partial Nine-Tails transformation. Sure, if he hadn't confronted Chiyo like he did, Gaara might not have been revived, but as Naruto's last encounter with Sasuke showed, words alone weren't enough to bring Sasuke back. Naruto needed power if he was going to change Sasuke's mind, and he displayed none of that here. So, when the Tenchi Bridge mission took place, Naruto failed utterly. He wasn't just unsuccessful in persuading Sasuke, he barely registered on the dude's radar, After his face had been hidden for the entire arc, the first time we got to see Sasuke post-time skip was when he was looking down on Team 7 as if they were ants. This wasn't the same Naruto whom Sasuke had acknowledged just before the time skip. This wasn't the same Naruto that had stood across from him in the Valley of the End. This was a weak, pathetic Naruto who begged and cried and bowed his head. He didn't confront Sasuke like before, and instead said dejected things like, "Why didn't you kill me?" and "If someone can't even save a friend, I don't think they deserve to be Hokage." He'd lost confidence in himself, in his ideals, and if Naruto didn't believe in what he was saying, why would Sasuke? By the time Akatsuki suppression rolled around, Naruto was desperate for a win. He didn't care about inspiring anyone, he just wanted to prove to himself that his hopes and ideals were worth defending. Kakuzu served as Naruto's fodder, but that's the primary issue with his character. Kakuzu was largely disconnected from the two emotional payoffs in this arc, and that made him an underwhelming antagonist. He mostly stood on the sidelines when Hidan fought Asuma, and he offered no ideological conflict to Naruto. He was just there to take the L, and that's a real shame. One of the most interesting aspects of Naruto is watching the titular knucklehead interact with these twisted parallels of himself and battle them on an ideological level as well as a physical one. But while I do ultimately defend this Talk No Jutsu motif, this was one example where the subject could have been given a little more nuance. If Kakuzu had possessed some sort of ideology that Naruto could have challenged, the battle between them could have been far more memorable. Since Naruto didn't need the ideological victory here, though, he could have still defeated Kakuzu without Talk No Jutsu. You can write a character with conviction and problematic ideals who still loses in the end. Just look at Stain from My Hero Academia. Good example. This failure to change Kakuzu would have played into the mixed feelings Naruto had after their fight. The after effects of the Rasen Shuriken were already meant to undercut his victory and prevent him from fully escaping his downward spiral before Jiraiya's death, and this added weight would have accentuated his desire to connect with Pain even more. As things turned out, this arc, which lacked Talk No Jutsu, definitely didn't measure up to the ones that had it. What it did do, however, was give Naruto the confidence he needed to confront his toughest obstacle yet.
Oh, mate. God damn.
俺がこの葉に対してやった正義はお前が俺にやろうとしていることと同じだ。大切なものを失う痛みは誰も同じ。お前も俺もその痛みを知る者
Oh god damn, yes, you know loss.
お前はお前の正義のために俺は俺の正義のために俺たちは正義という名の復讐へと駆り立てられた普通の人間だ。だが復讐を正義というならばその正義はさらなる復讐を生み
Yeah, so he had a philosophy he believed in.
憎しみの連鎖が始まる。
Pain sought peace through oppression. He wanted to focus all hatred on himself and rule over the populace like a god. But before he challenged the world as a whole, he first decided to test his ideology on a smaller scale. Enter the Hidden Rain Village. This was Pain's test subject, a land in which everyone feared the same entity, the same Pain. The flow of information was limited by the constant rain, which served as both a censor to keep locals in and a barrier to keep foreigners out. It was nothing short of a dictatorship, but it worked. When Jiraiya infiltrated the village and interrogated two of its civilians, they resisted him not just for their own sake, but for Pain's as well. These guys didn't just fear Pain, they supported him, worshipped him even, at one point referring to Lord Pain as a god and Konan as an angel. Pain's vision had proven itself to be an effective one in both theory and practice. So with the Akatsuki backing him, he attempted to expand the scope of his influence. His new plan involved capturing all the tailed beasts and using their power to create jutsu of mass destruction. With such power at their disposal, the Akatsuki would control all wars, and by destroying millions of people, they would force the entire world to experience the same loss. The same pain. This, in Pain's mind, was the only way to end all conflicts, for those who did not know Pain would never understand true peace. His ultimate goal was to unite the world through empathy, so although his methods were cruel and extreme, he believed that the end justified the means.
Yeah. Excuse me.
俺の里をこんなに仕上がったお前なんかが偉そうにほざいてんじゃねえならお 前の目的は何だ。
お前をぶっ倒せ。俺がこの忍びの世界を平和にしてやる。
そうか、それは立派なことだ。それこそ正義だな。だが俺の家族を、俺の仲間を、俺の里を、この里と同じようにしたお前たち木の葉の忍びだけが平和と正義を口にすることを許されるわけではないだろう。
There's a good reason why even Part 2 haters will point to the Pain assault and say, this was when Naruto got good again. Pain is one of, if the most imposing antagonists the series has to offer, as he needed to be. After Naruto had defeated Kakuzu and started to escape his downward spiral, Pain killed Jiraiya and undercut Naruto's progress almost immediately.
Definitely.
Then he presented Naruto with an ideological conflict that, while disagreeable, couldn't definitively be countered. Pain's perspective was reasonable, and his arguments appeared to be sound. But most importantly, Pain had conviction. He wasn't like Neji, whose actions and ideals had so blatantly contradicted each other at every turn. He didn't struggle with an internal conflict like Gaara, who had been continuously haunted by a more loving past that he so desperately wanted back. If Pain had an underlying contradiction in his ideals, he kept it hidden, just as he did his true identity. Where Neji's hypocrisy had been obvious, and Gaara's actions had been weakened by his own inner turmoil, Naruto couldn't read Pain, and Pain hadn't weakened himself. As such, when he was faced with the question, how would you confront this hatred in order to create peace, all Naruto could say was, I don't know, but your piece is still wrong.
Yeah.
Of course, this response, which lacked any supporting evidence or pathos, wasn't going to satisfy a man with such conviction.
Nope.
To properly understand Pain and refute his ideology, Naruto had to confront him face to face. He had to hear the tale of Nagato, the man behind the mask, and only then could Naruto discover his enemy's hidden hypocrisy. The brilliant thing about Pain Nagato's characterization is that his contradictions were hiding in plain sight, but Kishimoto still managed to hide them behind other layers of his character, like the multifaceted power of the Renegade, the mystery surrounding his true identity, the emotional appeal behind his frightening ideals.
Yeah.
But while Nagato's hypocrisy had been present even early on, Naruto didn't receive all of the details until the very end of the arc. Jiraiya was able to recognize the contradictions, but he was too late. He had lived a life full of failures, and thus had nothing to say that would change Nagato's mind. He could say that Nagato was wrong, but he had no experiences to support that claim. All he could do was have faith in Naruto, but when he died, he took his knowledge and memories of Nagato with him. Nothing was passed along to Naruto save the Tales of a Gutsy Shinobi novel Jiraiya had written using Nagato as inspiration for the protagonist. These elements added weight to his presence in the story, but they were carefully integrated in a way that didn't detract from his equally intricate hypocrisy, something that had been hinted at from the very beginning. Nagato had convinced himself that he was still striving for the same goal as Jiraiya, but in reality, he had abandoned Jiraiya's teachings long ago. More specifically, by attempting to unite everyone through pain, Nagato had abandoned true empathy. He placed himself on a pedestal and called himself a god that would rule over the world and guide it towards peace. But in doing so, he stopped trying to understand and empathize with people. At one point, he even told Naruto flat out,
人は決して理解し合うことのできない生き物だと悟らざるを得ない。
And yet he still tried to connect them through a mutual understanding of pain. His ideology was fundamentally flawed, and as Naruto started learning more and more about him, the cracks in Nagato's argument began to intensify until it eventually shattered entirely. He wanted to guide the world toward peace, but he later said that true peace cannot exist, and so he would instead strive for periods of temporary peace. All of this he said without recognizing how twisted his original goal had become. As an outsider looking in, however, Naruto did recognize it, but he could only do so after he had defeated the 6 Paths of Pain, a literal manifestation of Naruto moving past his pain. By feeling a burning hatred and then deciding to compromise on his vengeance for the sake of peace, Naruto did what Nagato had failed to do. He never lost hope, and he didn't forsake himself or his sensei. Just like with Jiraiya, Nagato rejected this as a non-answer, so Naruto went right after Nagato's contradiction. When Naruto quoted Jiraiya's book, Nagato realized that he had become the very thing he had once been fighting against. The moment pain was created was the moment Nagato lost faith in himself. His alliance with the Akatsuki and his attack on Konoha had all been for nothing, So in his last act, he undid as much damage as he could with the Rinne Rebirth, and put his faith in Naruto, hoping that the young ninja could carry his dream forward and succeed where he had failed. Nagato had changed over time, and in changing, he had contradicted himself. But though Naruto had stumbled as well, he ultimately stayed true to his word. At the end of their clash to move toward peace, Naruto's pending answer was better than Nagato's wrong answer, and so Nagato decided to match Naruto's compromise with one of his own. This was hardly a definitive victory, though, as Naruto's exchange with Pain would weigh on his mind all throughout the chaotic Five Kage summit.
Part 2.
This arc served as a key turning point in the series where the pessimistic principles of the ninja world began to shift on a large scale. While Naruto had been protecting the village from Pain, Sasuke had joined the Akatsuki and become a wanted criminal. This once again undercut Naruto's momentum, as he was then bombarded by a bunch of new information and problems that were outside of his control. With the Pain compromise and his lack of an answer still stressing him out, Naruto could do nothing but beg and take a beating on Sasuke's behalf. Without supporting actions, his warnings about vengeance and the cycle of hatred accomplished nothing. Worse still, Sasuke had moved further into darkness, making it even more difficult for he and Naruto to understand each other. In the meantime, Gaara's path to redemption had finally placed him in a position where he could attempt his own Talk No Jutsu in Naruto's place.
That's true.
The first of these took place at the Gokage Council, where Gaara's Naruto-esque boldness resonated with the stubborn Tsuchikage and led him to work alongside the other villages. The second was with Sasuke, and since they had once shared a mutual understanding in the past, Sasuke gave Gaara a chance. Their roles had reversed after all. Gaara had gained a tremendous power on both the path of hatred and the path of love, something that Sasuke had been unable to do. So his perspective wasn't worthless. Because he didn't make a strong enough effort to connect to Sasuke now, though, Gaara quickly failed. He saw the same look in Sasuke's eyes that he did before, but he made the mistake of attempting to reach the old Sasuke that had been torn in two. The current Sasuke may have shared the same look in his eyes, but those eyes had evolved. He no longer had any need for nor interest in personal ties. He had found power down the path of isolation, a power far greater than Gaara had achieved. So when Gaara continued to lecture him based on his own experiences, instead of attempt to understand the man before him, Sasuke lost interest. Like Naruto at Tenchi Bridge, Gaara had nothing new to offer, and when push came to shove, he tried to bring Sasuke down by force and failed. Something similar took place with Kakashi and Sakura, two people who had once been able to reach out to Sasuke, but now were unable to do so due to their lack of understanding. While everyone was telling Sasuke that what he was doing was wrong, they weren't making an effort to relate to him, and so he didn't care about their opinions. On the other hand, Naruto, who had wanted to understand Sasuke from the very beginning, had now experienced Sasuke's pain. But since the situation had changed, he still couldn't counter him. To connect to Sasuke and finally convince him to return home, Naruto first had to confront his hatred in the form of the nine-tailed fox. In the past, he feared the fox's power, ran away from his hatred. Only when he had given in to despair did Naruto let the fox's rage rampage. But when that happened, Naruto was never in control. To properly match Sasuke, who had achieved power by embracing his hatred, Naruto needed to control his own by taming the nine-tailed fox. Upon doing that, he had finally leveled the playing field for their clash at the end of the war. From there, Sasuke's defeat was inevitable. He had planned to cut all ties and bear all the world's hatred from the shadows, but in the end, he couldn't cut down Naruto. He never could. His desire to protect his comrades hadn't been erased entirely, as instinctual displays of selflessness like the one he displayed against Haku had continued to slip through on occasion during the war. As well as that, Sasuke knew the pain of loneliness. Unlike Pain, who in a similar position viewed himself as a righteous god, Sasuke knew that his notion of a Hokage would lead to his own suffering. Even as he was giving his response to Naruto, he hesitated. Deep down, Sasuke couldn't abandon his connection. He couldn't go back to being alone, and that's why he had lost before the battle even began. With that being said, Naruto's previous ideological opponent didn't go down so easily, and much like Sasuke, he served as a culmination of everything Naruto had faced beforehand.
Obito. There we are. Oh, excuse me. Thought no Jutsu was a big part of defeating this dude.
理想や希望を語った結果がこれだ。これが現実なんだ。
Obito was a culmination of the enemies Naruto had defeated beforehand, which made him the perfect precursor to the final boss.
Yes.
Or at least he would have if Madara had been the final antagonist, but that's a subject for another time.
Yeah, that's not point.
He tapped into
part of this,
Naruto's
is it?
greatest fears and challenged him on the things he had previously overcome. His isolation and his pain. One of his conversations with Naruto even acted as a direct extension of the pain compromise. But because Obito had abandoned hope entirely, he continued to push Naruto further than Nagato had. Unlike Nagato, Obito didn't care about what Naruto had been entrusted with. He knew from the beginning that Naruto shared an ideal that he too once held in the past, and that's why he wanted to test him. He wanted to see how Naruto would react to failure firsthand. He wanted to break him down, and watch a new version of his younger self abandon the world all over again.
Yeah, he wanted to see
He wanted Naruto to validate his own choices and prove that his life wasn't a complete failure. Naruto found strength in connections.
He wanted to know what he was doing
because of
was
his
right.
Connections. Naruto
By
confronted
seeing
his
someone
pain.
he saw in himself
Obito
do the
tried
same
to
thing.
escape his own. At first, not unlike Sasuke, he appeared to be Naruto's polar opposite. Both he and Sasuke had found suffering in their connections and decided to cut themselves off from the world. But while Naruto had a deep understanding of Sasuke through their long history with each other, which then made the result of their battle a foregone conclusion, Naruto didn't know Obito's tale at all, and thus couldn't recognize his contradictions right off the bat.
No.
As more details of his past began to surface, however, it became obvious that he was just another twisted reflection of Naruto. What set him apart from Naruto's previous opponents, however, was the dynamic of their fight. While Naruto was searching for Obito's hypocrisy, Obito was looking for Naruto's. He wanted to see if an unbreakable will could truly exist, or if such a thing was mere fantasy. So on that note, were Naruto's actions consistent with his ideals? It's one thing to say, "I'll never go back on my word," but this theme would ultimately fall flat if Naruto was a hypocrite all along whose behavior was never questioned. So let's examine his core principles and see if they hold up. After his team was attacked during the escort mission, he vowed that he would never run away again. He contradicted this during the Chunin exams when he wanted to run from Gaara, but Gaara called him out on it. He threw Naruto's boasting back in his face, and when push came to shove, Naruto overcame his fear to protect his comrades. He acknowledged his hypocrisy and truly corrected it, for that was the last opponent he ever tried to run from. Another component of his ninja code, also defined in the Land of Waves arc, was his belief that shinobi were human beings, not tools. Thus, when facing his enemies, he treated them not as objects to use or break, but as people to reform.
Yeah.
His battles weren't just battles, they served as a dialogue between two characters. This was also contradicted in a meaningful way. During the first Sasuke fight, Naruto demanded that Sasuke acknowledge him as an equal right after he said that he would drag Sasuke back to Konoha by force. Sasuke initially refused, of course, because Naruto wasn't displaying equality in his actions, he was attempting to display dominance. Sasuke's eventual compromise came only after Naruto stated that he saw Sasuke as a brother, but while he was willing to compromise, Naruto was not. Even after he had been acknowledged, Naruto still refused to acknowledge Sasuke's desires, and so he had already lost the ideological battle. This hypocrisy led to Naruto's downward spiral, something he only recovered from after addressing his hypocrisy. To move forward, he had to correct his contradiction and compromise. His hypocrisy was a critical part of his character arc, and for the most part, it was handled well. I can't say it was perfect, however, because Kakuzu's fight with Naruto wasn't a meaningful contradiction that Naruto could grow from. He needed a win to get closer to Sasuke. Kakuzu gave him that win. In other words, Kakuzu was a tool Naruto used to reach Sasuke. Had he been fighting Kakuzu to protect his comrades, this might not have mattered. After all, keeping his allies alive had always been his top priority. See Gaara and Kaguya. But that wasn't why he wanted to beat Kakuzu. He vehemently rejected help and fought alone for the sole purpose of matching Sasuke's strength. It's an unaddressed contradiction. Plain and simple. Kakuzu aside, the prior contradictions in Naruto's character gave Obito something to exploit. He continuously pressured Naruto to see if he would give up, but each time he wavered, one of his comrades stepped in to remind him of everything they had accomplished before and of what they were fighting for now. Just as Naruto wanted to help others, he could be helped by them. Obito, on the other hand, was alone. He lacked the same support network that Naruto had built. So instead of testing Naruto, he wound up testing himself. As Naruto was continually validated, Obito's will started to weaken. he began to see images of an alternate reality where he hadn't abandoned his
Yeah, he
comrades,
did, didn't he?
where he
Yeah.
hadn't abandoned hope. The dream that he had wanted to fulfill in the infinite Tsukuyomi became real. His ideal world, his ideal self, was standing right in front of him. Obito lost hope in reality and pursued a dream, and because of that, any happiness he could obtain on that path would only be an illusion. Plus, he had claimed that the name Obito Uchiha was meaningless to him, but it was his past experiences that continued to motivate his actions. His contradictions were obvious, but he had repressed the past for so long that his denial was nearly impossible to break through. Even after Naruto had looked into his heart and spelled it out to him point blank, Obito still rejected the truth. He stubbornly defended his choices because to do otherwise would undo everything he had spent a majority of his life working towards. He would be forced to accept that he had sacrificed everything for nothing. As he began to acknowledge Naruto's words, as well as his own mistakes, he tried to rationalize his position. There's no need to walk a rugged path with an unclear endpoint. Anyone would take the easy path to peace, and that's just what I'm doing. Naruto refuted that there were no shortcuts or easy ways to escape hardship.
Nope.
Obito was just running away from his problems and projecting righteousness onto himself. But even then, he hadn't truly given up.
今までの道に後悔もない。だったら今さら木陰の自分なんか想像する。
リンが見守りたかったのは今のお前じゃねえよ。内葉オビトだ。
Naruto was able to defeat Gaara by himself for the sake of his comrades, so when Obito was too much for him to handle alone, his comrades returned the favor. His journey had come full circle. Hope had taken a physical form in the bonds he had forged, and as Obito lay defeated on the battlefield, he finally confronted his hypocrisy and acknowledged this hope once again. This quote has garnered criticism for being too sympathetic towards Obito. Some people even believe that this acceptance undoes the tragic elements of his character, and this potential frustration is understandable. Here's Naruto, the protagonist and moral center of the story, praising the man responsible for Neji's death. I can see why that would raise a few eyebrows, so let's unpack what Naruto actually said here. At the end of the day, Naruto saw Obito not as a murderer or traitor, but as an ally. And if you've been keeping up with Naruto's characterization up to this point, you'd understand why this makes perfect sense. He chose to value the good in Obito over the bad, just as he had done with Sasuke, Pain,
like I said at the start
Gaara,
of the video, he
Neji,
just sees the
and
good
many
in
others before him.
everybody.
Obito may have made countless mistakes in the past, but he tried to atone for what little he could in his final act. And there's something worth noting in that, especially for Obito. He didn't just abandon his sensei's teachings or his comrades, he abandoned the entire world. He forsook everything and dedicated years of his life to a worthless illusion. In those final moments, he had to admit that his entire life up to that point was a waste.
Yeah, it was
But even then, deep down, he never lost hope. After dragging the shinobi world into war to benefit himself, he died to protect the future of shinobi. Of course that would resonate with Naruto. Of course he would get defensive over Obito. Does that mean Obito's actions were completely forgiven? No. Naruto didn't forgive Nagato for killing Jiraiya, but when Obito criticized his final act, Naruto was still willing to defend him. You can certainly disagree with the optimism Kishimoto presents, but at no point is it ever inconsistent or problematic. The same goes with Talk no Jutsu. Perhaps it doesn't align to your particular tastes, but Naruto isn't worse off for having its antagonists change their ideals in the end.
Nope.
If anything, the series is all the more interesting for having crafted this narrative through line. Anybody can write a fight scene where two people punch each other until one guy falls down, but it takes at least a bit of creativity to craft complex, compelling characters that consistently conform to contradictory conduct. I wouldn't call Naruto a masterpiece because of this, but I'd definitely call Kishimoto a genius. Or maybe I've just been Talk no Jutsu. This video took an eternity to make, but in the process of doing so, I came up with like 5 or 6 other script ideas. So I hope you're ready for the summer of Naruto, because I've got a bunch of Naruto videos that I want to make now.
That's cool.
The obvious one being a video about Madara, because he still conforms to this idea of hypocrisy, but with the structure I had devised for this script, Madara just couldn't fit. And there's also some other stuff I'd like to touch on with Kaguya there. So that's going to be its own separate video, kind of an addendum to this script. And beyond that, there's plenty of other ideas I want to get to eventually, because Naruto's actually a good series, guys.
Yes, it is.
I guess this is what happens when you talk about a long-running shonen manga for like 40 hours on a podcast. Is you're gonna have a lot to say about it when you revisit it. If you like listening to critical analysis of Naruto or just long-running shonen manga / anime in general, or if you just want to support more long-form projects like this, then be sure to head on over to Patreon.com. and join the likes of Stone Cold 0007, and all of my other lovely patrons who have supported me, stuck with me, even though it took like a month, more than a month, like a month and a half to make this video, but thanks for being patient with me. Good video. Putting up with that. I'd also be failing in this outro if I didn't mention Kraftsdorf's new video about the conflict and compromise of Sasuke Uchiha. Basically works as like a partner to this video. We even both like uploaded them at like the same time, so like the thumbnails will play off each other if you had us in your subscription box. So go check it out. Sasuke gets a bad rap, and it's bad, but Kraftsdorf has a great defense of Sasuke, analyzing his character and how great he is. So when I said before that Sasuke is one of the best characters in Naruto, I wasn't memeing. It's real. Go watch that video, and you'll understand too why Sasuke is the best, and he's great. I feel so bad for him because we came up with this idea. He'd already written the Sasuke video, and then I decided I would do Talk no Jutsu. We were gonna have them play off each other. So he was all done. And then I was like, oh, it's just got to write a video about Talk no Jutsu. It's not going to be too bad.
And then it took you
I took like a month to make the video. So he's just been waiting on me. He's got the video done and everything.
Oh,
and
bless.
At the time of recording
so he waited
this,
for you
I still have like a week of editing to do, but he's all done already. He's waiting on me. I feel bad. I had to make him wait to do this. So go over there and, support Kraftsdorf as well. Because he had to wait on old me, who was just moving along.
I just using that one clip over and over. It's so weird watching this.
Kraftsdorf. It's over. Another way to support the two of us would be to go over and check out the Nen Show podcast. Like I said, like 40 hours of discussion on Naruto there, although we weren't as woke then on Naruto as we are now. Like in the process of making this video, I came up with so many new realizations that I didn't have back then. But if you want to go check that out, we also are in the middle of doing Bleach right now. So if you like Bleach or you hate Bleach and you want to go over and make fun of Bleach, then we are over there talking about Bleach. The videos I have to make after this shouldn't be nearly as long as this one, so hopefully the release schedule will be a bit more consistent from here on out. Lots of Naruto content coming, and maybe I'll watch other anime and manga, and I'll come up with new ideas to put out in the meantime. But for now, I'm thinking it's going to be the summer of Naruto, so stick around for that.
That's cool.
And as always, keep on YouTubing.
That was a good video. I like it. Good discussion. In the defense of Talk no Jutsu. The most powerful jutsu. I love it. So there you go, guys. You asked for that. Did it. I really need to go pee now, so I'm sorry, not going to be able to talk about this. But thank you very much for watching. What did you guys think of that? What did you guys think of this? Click like, subscribe if you haven't already. Leave comments down below. Let me know what I should watch and discuss in future videos. And I'll see you guys, you guys, next time. Bye.